Oil and gas prices spiked today as the regional conflict escalated and shipping was disrupted in the Strait of Hormuz.
Over the past few weeks, the price of oil on the international market increased because of war and instability in parts of the world that produce much of the oil used globally. Most people understand this from everyday life. When the cost of a product goes up, eventually, the customer pays more too. Fuel is no different. When oil prices rise overseas, countries like St. Lucia eventually feel the effects. But that's only part of the story. The other part is what government is doing to help. Rather than passing the full increase on to consumers, government currently contributes 86 cents on every gallon of gasoline sold and $1.21 on every gallon of diesel sold. That means if a driver purchases 10 gallons of diesel, government pays $12.10 of the cost. Government is also helping to keep cooking gas prices stable. The 20-pound cylinder used by many families every day remains $34. Without government support, the same cylinder would cost $70. The 22-pound cylinder remains $38. Without government support, it would cost more than $76. In fact, government contributes more than $35 toward every 20-pound cylinder sold and more than $38 toward every 22-pound cylinder sold. The reality is simple. St. Lucia cannot control the international price of oil. What government can do is help reduce the impact on families, workers, commuters, small businesses, and households. This is why government continues to help cover part of the cost of fuel and maintain stable cooking gas prices despite rising international oil prices. So while fuel prices have increased, government continues to share part of the burden and to help protect consumers from the full impact of rising prices. That's the full story behind the latest fuel price adjustment.
For another Monday pre-cabinet press briefing. My name is Melissa Paul, and our first presenter is Honorable Emma Hippolyte, who is the Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Gender, Older Persons, Labor, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs, with a few updates.
Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be back. I was out for just under 2 weeks. The first week, I had a meeting in Washington, the Inter-American Commission on Women. And I am pleased that that particular meeting, CARICOM made a very impressive effort in managing the executive of the committee. And it is, the entire committee is the Americas, including the Caribbean. But it's a while that the Caribbean has not been on the executive committee in a big way. Last year, the last term, Dr. Poyot was one of the vice presidents of the committee. But this term, what has happened, you had Uruguay being the president, with Grenada being the other one of the vice presidents. But the other 5 committee members, we had 3 Caribbean countries represented. You had St. Lucia, we had Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana, including Jamaica. We had Jamaica as well on that commission. So for us, it was very important that CARICOM made a presence and to change the narrative in terms of what is happening at the commission, because it's part of the OAS. There's a very strong Latin presence in the commission. So it was good that CARICOM was able to sit and take a positive decision to get into the executive over that particular committee. I want to put on record the support and the work that was done by Ms. Shania Stevens. Shania Stevens, who is part of the staff in Washington. And I could see that she had really walked the pavement and done quite a bit of the negotiations beforehand to assist us with that. And I also want to put on record the work that our Ms. Yasmin Odlam is doing, because she's a staff at the OAS as well. And these 2 ladies really supported us to do the work that we had to do on the ground. So I'm pleased that CARICOM, as it relates to women, CARICOM came together and is now forming part of the executive of that body. Significant work for us, but it is a step in the right direction. The following week, I headed a delegation to Geneva, and there we had my permanent secretary in the Department of Labor, Ms. Imbat, as well as Ms. Jenny Joseph, who's the Director of Gender, and we had Mr. Vern Gill representing employers, and Mr. Julian Monrose representing the Trade Union Federation. And what was happening at the ILO is the annual ILO International Labour Conference, where the entire world is represented. And the focus on the conference was on 3 thematic areas: the whole issue of decent work in the platform economy, and what that is where the world of work is going, AI and everything else on that way. The second theme was on the whole issue of tripartism, and that is where government, unions, and employers work together to deal with the issues that's impacting labor and the economy at large. And the third issue was the whole issue of gender in the world of work. As well, there we had an opportunity, part of CARICOM, I was part of the team that met the Director General, and that's an issue that happens every year. But we were able to sit together, focus on what each country was going to address, and I believe we had a very productive meeting with the Director General of the ILO. The second area for us I think it was on Thursday, I addressed the plenary, and it was a long time since St. Lucia had not addressed the plenary. And there, the focus again was on social justice. And in social justice, I sort of brought out St. Lucia's focus on people putting first agenda and some of the social policies that as a government we had adopted and how it impacts persons, the whole issue of our subsidy, the whole issue of period poverty, the whole issue of one laptop per child, all of that contributes and falls into the philosophy of social justice and equity. So that address went down very well. And Friday lunchtime, I was part of a different podcast. And that podcast is an international podcast where we discuss how St. Lucia, since we just ratified Article 144, how we're going to use it, how we're going to resolve conflicts when we sit at the table. And my response and focus was always, if we continue to focus, if all parties, government, workers, and employers, focus on putting the people first, then there is no issue that we could not resolve amicably. And I think that went down very well with that meeting. So again, it is something that you can go back and watch. I would maybe try to see how best we can get that podcast rebroadcast so persons can see the representation and what it means. I think it's so important for us as we speak, for the workers of this country to understand that we have that structure in place, and that structure, what it does is to ensure that the standards we put in place for our workers, there is a group focusing on that all the time. And that's the work we're doing at the Department of Labor. I was told that in announcing the formation of the Tripartite Advisory Committee, there were some negative comments in social media. And I want to take this moment to address that, because sometimes, when persons don't know things, we quickly rush and put negative comments in the media, and immediately you have a negative stream. And I told my PS, you should have told me, and we need to correct it, because some of the persons who came in and put those negative statements know better. And if you do not know, you ask questions. As a country, we have a responsibility to be positive in terms of the development of this country. And I'm very pleased that we're able to ratify Article 144. Over 180 countries have ratified it. And I was very pleased that we were able to sit with the unions and sit with the workers, and they have agreed to be, and Cabinet has approved that committee. It's a 10-person committee, and they're supposed to sit not only when there are disputes, but long before that, to put the right policies in place so that we can impact the world of work. So what this committee needs is encouragement and open dialogue. And within the Ministry of Equity and the Department of Labor, we are open to that open dialogue so persons understand the purpose of that committee and what it is we are trying to achieve for workers. We want productivity, we want decent work, we want you to participate in it, but we can do without the negatives. As the minister, I'm open to that dialogue, and I really urge persons, if you are not sure about something, pick up the phone and call. We need to move forward together. I thank you. You have any questions on me today?
Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
Quick question, but more so on the, let's say, consumer welfare side. As you know, economic pressures are being felt globally, and those are reaching St. Lucia's shores. We could see increase in prices in commodities and stuff of that nature. Is there any intention from, I guess, Consumer Affairs or that department for there to be an added focus on the monitoring of those price changes to ensure that consumers, if there is an increase, they're paying a fair increase, and that is not being exploited by businesses. Those increases that we're seeing.
Okay, so that's a fair question. First, let me tell you, and I have reported in this room that the government, we recognize there's an increase, that we have what you call, you've spoken on it, imported inflation. Especially what is happening now with the war, Iran has just caused it to be worse because it now impacts the key thing, which is oil, the price of oil, and that impacts the cost of transportation. It impacts not only the cost, if it's not stopped, it's going to impact the availability. That's important, apart from costs, because we've been talking about imported high prices for a little while. Now, with what is happening outside there, it's going to impact, if it's not resolved soon, the availability of foods and the availability of services. This can have significant implications for us. So I'm glad you raised it. In terms of the monitoring of high prices, we have a team at the Ministry of Consumer Affairs monitoring. And maybe just before I traveled, and that's 2 weeks ago, I asked the director for a detailed report because it is what is due technically to tell us what is happening, how we're performing. So I'm hoping that maybe by next week I should be able to come and see what is happening, specific to your question. But I want us to have a continuous conversation as the potential impact of what is happening out there. And I'm saying so because you're all young people here, our consumption patterns, which we have Prime Minister insisting on telling us, grow what we eat and eat what we grow, and half of you all there not eating guapin, you all are not eating plantain, you all are only in ramen and chow mein, a lot of things. So I want you to bring that thing home, that when you look at the backyard in your parents' house, how can you plant a few lettuce seeds there? Yeah, that's important. Have that conversation, guys. There are a lot of things you can do differently. So I want you to bring it to the schools. I want you to encourage our fishers. I want us to do different things. Just think of what are some of the things that we can do to consume that you don't have to import. I think that's a conversation we must have, and it's one that is urgent.
My second question and my final question, more on the social end this time. Well, since you assumed, I guess, this new role and these new ministries, a few of your departments have had to be, how would I say, activated in a lot of high profile cases that have garnered a lot of attention on social media. For example, the mother who was displaced, some domestic violence incidents, and I've seen some of the I guess communication in terms of what your ministry is doing. But how is it in managing those vulnerable cases? And I don't want to say so many of them. They could just be, we just see them a lot in the media. But just how has it been managing a lot of these cases, especially considering the vulnerabilities in those instances?
Okay, you are correct. In recent times, we've had quite a few. We've heard about the murder of the young lady, a young mother, a young person by the spouse. We've seen some mothers being homeless. And that conversation, you asked me how I'm managing it. And it is indeed a challenge trying to respond. So the first thing, one of the things when it happened is to bring the department together to say, what is the communication that we have to do? Because we have to communicate to different stakeholders immediately. You have the persons that are impacted directly, and then you have to see what type of counseling you have to go on the ground to the families to ensure that you give them the support. The mother who was homeless was able to go in. That one is a little easier. Go in, get new space, and provide some assistance. The more challenging ones are the emotional challenges. How do you deal with this? How do you manage the negative on the ground as it relates to what caused the young man to act in that way. And unfortunately, you cannot bring a life back. A life is lost in the process. How do you deal with that child? How do you surround that child so that that incident does not impact the child's life forever? So it's a lot of pressures on my team at the ministry, but I always say, in fact, tomorrow, God willing, we have a meeting. We being the Minister for Crime Prevention, the Minister for Education, and myself, we are sitting down to do some collaboration. How do we consolidate some of the work that is happening at crime prevention with some of the work that's happening at the Ministry of Equity, and how do we also bring some of that work in the education system? So it is the challenges that we have at the moment, we cannot deal with them, we cannot solve them immediately, but we need to take steps to ensure that we get to the root and try to deal with it. I always try to go way down. Sometimes people think that we can quickly stop what is happening, but where we are now did not start today. It's years of maybe not taking structured action, and now we need to respond. We have to deal with the present pain, but we need to ensure we try to deal with programs that are identifying the root cause of the problem. And the challenge for us as well is the technical resources to get to the roots, the counseling, the hand-holding, the patience that is needed to work with our young persons in particular, the anger management, and some persons saying, be radical enough to say, what are some of the social media things decisions we have to make? Some countries have gone to the extent of saying, pull out the devices from children age X to Y. Is that what we have to do? I think that conversation is a national conversation that we need to have. Parents need to have it. So it's a new ministry, it's new challenges, but as a government and collectively, we are going to face it. It's our country and we need to move forward. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon.
A couple NGOs have expressed concern over the potential for a private stakeholder to step in when it comes to the management of the women's shelter. What can you tell us about this? Will there be a PPP?
No, I don't think I want to say that. I believe that the conversation we're going to have, I know there were certain recommendations to try to get a private entity to manage the crisis center. But you know, anything that happens there is the government that is held accountable. So when we decide that we're going to put the crisis center in private hands, and government, every minute, it comes back to the ministry. In fact, I had a long conversation with the director of gender because she was with me on that trip, and we are preparing a paper to the cabinet of ministers. So maybe in a week or two, I'll be in a better position to speak clearly on the direction of that center. But it is one that is not clear-cut as we see it. But I need to tell you in the meantime that there is renovation works taking place.
And the crisis center is currently being moved to the Chaussee Road area.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes, it's a little while now. I visited them months ago, so I'm really hoping that they're already settled in that space. Yeah. And I want to take this moment to thank all the volunteers who sit at the various organizations, NGOs, and who are supporting children, mothers, women, fathers, and the like, because it is one that requires constant effort. So I really want to thank them.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister Kishana Smith from Choice TV. Just some feedback in relation to your visit to Geneva. This was the first time in decades St. Lucia's addressed the ILO conference. What message did you seek to deliver to the international community, and how was the St. Lucian contribution received by delegates?
Oh, as I said, it was well received, and my message was that we have a government that take action. We don't just say that we support the principles of social justice and equity. And I outlined about maybe 8 interventions, as I said: the period poverty, the subsidy of rice, flour, sugar, and now the subsidy of cooking gas to a higher level, and the subsidy of even vehicular gas for vehicles, the subsidy that the provision of 1 laptop per child. All these are programs, the introduction of universal health care. All these are social programs by our government, which shows that the government embraces the whole issue of equity and social justice.
Which of these areas do you believe presents the greatest opportunity or challenge for St. Lucia, and what lessons can be applied locally?
Well, the one that provides the greatest challenge now, as of today, is the whole issue of the subsidies. Because as you know, as a government, we have subsidized since that war started. We have been subsidizing, and I think we've given the figures before. For example, 22-pound gas, for a 22-pound tank of gas, the government is subsidizing more than 50%. I think at the moment cost might be about $45, and it is definitely, the full cost is over $70. So government is subsidizing more than 50% each time the average person goes out there to buy a tank of gas. They need to remember that the government has paid more than half of that cost for them. The government is now the issue as well in terms of the diesel and gas for vehicles. At the moment, it's being subsidized. So it's going to be a challenge if, as I said earlier, if this war becomes a protracted thing, if it does not come to an end, how long can the government continue to do so? So that is the urgent one for us.
The conference focused on social dialogue, gender equity in the workplace, and decent work in the platform economy. Which of these areas, oh no, I said that already. You highlighted several labor and social protection reforms during your address. What tangible benefits can St. Lucian workers and employers expect to see as a result of St. Lucia's participation in the conference and the discussions held in Geneva?
I must say, not only for my attendance at the conference, when I joined the Labor Department, one of the key things that was already happening was we were getting some significant support from the ILO's regional office in Trinidad. And I want to give a lot of credit to my predecessor, Dr. Virginia Albert Poyet, because she started that work. She visited, Dr. Poyet and the PS visited the ILO office in Trinidad and Tobago and caused that dialogue to commence. We were getting, for example, you may have recalled the week of Labor Day preceding May 1st, we had a delegation here. You may recall that Prime Minister and the rep from Trinidad, the ILO rep from Trinidad and Tobago signed the Convention 144. It was at the Financial Center. Also, it was on I think it was 29th of April, that we also launched the National Tripartite Advisory Commission, which I mentioned earlier. All of that is preparing us for what is going to happen tomorrow morning. It is sitting down and saying, we have a group of persons here, this country belongs to us, St. Lucia belongs to us, not just government. But we are saying that with open dialogue between workers, who are represented by the unions, and employers, all the investors that are represented by the Employers Federation. It is when we sit at the table that we can sit down, craft policies that we can then go to the cabinet and say, these are the standards that you need to adopt for platform work, for example, those persons that are working on the call centers, for example. Especially what social protection are they paying NIC? What's the social protection for those persons? And these are the policies that we're working on now. And that is very important because that's where the world is going. And that is why at the ILO, and the conference continues this week. So as we speak, you have persons in committees working, negotiating to arrive at some conventions. So that's important for us.
Final question. ILO is built on tripartite structure that brings together government, employers, and workers. In St. Lucia, representation at the conference reflected that. How do you believe St. Lucia can strengthen this model at home, and what benefits do you believe closer collaboration among these three groups can bring to labor relations, productivity, and economic development?
Okay, as I said, we have started it. We started it. It was launched on April the 29th. One area I think that you mentioned that was discussed among ourselves at the table is the whole issue of the productivity of the St. Lucian worker. I think we need to have a conversation on that. The union will always be representing and talking about wages. Employers will say, well, I cannot afford X dollars, I can afford Y dollars. But to me, the missing link there is how productive are our workers. And that's not, it's both public sector and private sector. What it is that we must do to cause our workers to understand that there is what you call a fair day's work, a fair day's pay. And I think if all of us understand that, then we would have achieved quite a bit.
Continuously we hear of labor shortages. What was the government's position? Where are we at this very moment?
Okay. And that's an important issue that you've raised in terms of labor shortages. On the ground, our farmers will say they cannot get persons willing to come and work for the day to till the soil. So, for example, as a Minister for Labor, I would get applications for persons to bring persons in now to work on our farms. We are getting a lot of applications for work permit for persons to work in the hotel sector. One of the gaps for me in terms of dealing with this issue is we need to build a database of the skill gaps. That is sort of missing at the moment. We're trying to do certain things manually, but we definitely need a database. But government has responded because that's what drove the policy of having our 4 schools as TVET schools. That is where we're starting to build those technical skills to support the needs of industry, manufacturing, hotel sector. Because what you find is you have a lot of our persons, maybe, especially if you take a tourism sector, for example, persons who are going in to be the waitresses and so on. But the persons at the chefs, the technical skills is what is missing. So we need to fully identify what they are, provide the training to our people and cause them to come back and take on these positions. But it is an area that we have to address. That's it. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a productive
He's a little slower, but he will look a little different, but they can still play, laugh, learn, and be great friends just like you, right? You can remember, he says he can do karate, and all you can do karate. So he can do something I can't do. So your son, he can do karate like us. So he can do something I can't do. So you see why he's a Superman? Alright, he goes. He continues. On the other hand, autism is about how a child's brain works. Some children's brains are like puzzles. They see and understand the world in their own unique way. Yet there are a lot of people who have autism, but they are geniuses. That means their brain is much faster than mine or yours or anybody else. So even if somebody has autism, that doesn't mean they're lesser than you or they didn't act different. But he says that they are just different because, as he says, children's brains are like puzzles. They see and understand the world in their own unique way. My brain is different, so I am different. Now you know what he's saying? He's admitting that sometimes you make him feel sad because people try to ridicule it. Now, that is, I want to tell him that he must not feel sad. I'm the Prime Minister, people try to ridicule me too. So much does him. You understand? So I must say to him that he must never feel sad with what people say about you. He's thanking you for supporting us and for parties week. Right?
Students at the TVET School of Sustainable Agriculture and Culinary Arts presented Prime Minister Honorable Philip J. Pierre with fresh produce and agro-processed products grown and prepared by the students themselves. The gesture reflected Prime Minister Pierre's Eat What You Grow and Grow What You Eat philosophy, while highlighting the growing impact of TVET education in St. Lucia. TVET coordinator at the school, Ms. Bisbach, says the program is becoming increasingly relevant as countries around the world continue to face growing food security concerns linked to global instability and climate pressures.
Fast-growing world that we're in, a lot of focus has to really be on these hard skills that people can actually go in and do practical things. And so, at one of the schools where we're at, we are really trying to get people to, our students in fact, to really buy into agriculture, because without agriculture we can't eat. And then agriculture now leads to the other area that we do, which is culinary arts. And we're trying to fuse both of them and utilize what we have on the farm so that we can feed the nation, because who knows, especially with what's happening in the world these days, we really have to, as we say, grow what we eat and eat what we grow.
The presentation included an assortment of vegetables and agro-processed items developed through practical classroom and field training. The initiative also highlighted the growing role of TVET education in equipping students with practical and industry-ready skills for the future.
This was given to the Prime Minister to show appreciation for his generous contributions to our agro-processing expo that we had at Blue Coral Mall. His instrumental act was very beneficial to us to showcase our skills that we are currently developing and our potential of the industry.
Prime Minister Pierre praised the students, teachers, and the Ministry of Education for continuing to strengthen the national TVET program and encourage greater local production.
I just thank the people who have taken on the ideological shift into vocational education. We hope that it will grow from strength to strength. I want to thank the teachers again and the principal and the Ministry of Education for moving forward as we continue our vision of growing what you eat and eating what you grow.
Students also expressed appreciation to Prime Minister Pierre and the government for continuing to expand opportunities through TVET education.
Our final presenter is Honorable Philip J. Pierre, who is the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Minister for Finance, Constituency Development, People Empowerment, Justice, and National Security. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Today I just want to say a happy 80th birthday to Excellency Dame Paulette Louise, Governor General Emerita. She has been Governor General of St. Lucia from 1997 until the year 2016, the longest serving Governor General in St. Lucia. She was a former dean of the Upper Lewis Community College. She's led a distinguished career both in the world of academia and in public service. She's been a former teacher, and she's well known for her work on the Creole language. You may recall she was the first Governor General to not read the entire budget, but large excerpts of the budget in Creole. And that has become a tradition at the throne speeches, where she read part of a throne speech in Creole. So we want to wish her a very happy birthday and wish her long life and thank her for her service to the people of St. Lucia. So happy birthday to Dame Paulette Weezy. On a more somber note, we mourn the loss of former Governor General, Sir Emmanuel Neville Snack, who passed away last week. Sir Snack was former leader of the opposition, former Minister of External Affairs, former leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, and he was the parliamentary representative for Alabari. I've instructed that, following the usual protocol, that Neville be awarded a state funeral, and the date of the state funeral will be announced shortly. All flags will be flied at half-mast, and the normal protocols that are given to a deceased head of state. I've already expressed my condolences in public, but once more I want to express, I called Lady Julita Snack this morning and we had a discussion. I expressed the condolences of the government and the people of St. Lucia on the death of Sir Neville. May his soul rest in peace. Today also, the Cabinet will approve the extended tax amnesty, which will be in effect till December 2027. And what is important to note is that all interest and penalties of taxes due up to December 2025 will be waived. This is probably one of the most generous tax concessions ever. All interest and penalties due on taxes up to December 2025 are going to be waived. So we call on the public, all taxes, VAT, which is actually collected by businesses for the government and ought to be returned to the government immediately. But the government decided that we understand sometimes that there may be issues, so we're going to be waiving these interests and penalties. We have been doing that now from the budget. We've been doing that from the budget of 2026, and I think from 2023, we've been waiving, but yes, we've been waiving interest and penalties, the most generous tax concessions ever given. Also, we are going to be continuing the zero-rated items for building materials. That happened for another 2 years. Building materials will continue to be zero-rated as far as VAT is concerned, and the service charge on food items, which was being waived, will continue to be waived. So we're continuing our thrust in trying to reduce the impact of rising prices on the public of St. Lucia, and 2, trying to continue the building boom that is evident in St. Lucia. I will take any questions that you may wish at this time.
Just in relation to the tax amnesty, is it the same one where it's up to the penalties and interest that was accrued up until December 31st, 2025?
Yes.
Okay.
That one.
Okay, cool. Well, since you mentioned Governor...
And we're offering the inner revenue, the client, to come and speak to the inner revenue. But there's a formal situation where you can come and speak to the revenue about tax payment. You're going to be allowing people to have tax arrangements up to December 2027.
Since you mentioned Governor Generals, it just came to mind, how is Mr. Cyril, the Governor General, doing? Because in April, we were told that...
The Governor General is now on leave.
Okay.
He's on leave until the end of June or the middle of July. He's on leave at this point.
And that means Felix Finisterre continues to act in that?
No, Felix is not going to act. He's a deputy to the Governor General.
Okay.
It's very important that we get these words this correctly.
Okay. All right. Just my one question from me. There's been a lot of conversation online in the public domain, even speaking to some people, with regards to crime and legislation and how stringent legislation is. I mean, I've looked at the legislation. It seems pretty stringent to me. But what's your take on these sort of conversations? Just as a parliamentarian, where you have people calling for some form of, I don't know, amendments or some increased penalties in their minds.
But as I've mentioned to you several times, that the crime problem affects me, concerns me, right? But we've made the point many times that the government legislates. I don't know whether you heard Dr. Kenny Anthony in his discussion when he spoke to the members of the judiciary. There is a clear separation of powers. The question is, who takes the lead? We take the lead in that we pass the laws. Then there is the constitution. The constitution of the country, people challenge some of the laws in the constitution. That's happened before. St. Lucia has, and you're going to find some of the strictest gun laws in the region. The strictest ones. The question is, why, you may ask yourself, why aren't these laws, why don't you hear them manifested? I can't answer that question. Sometimes I know you don't like me to say that, but I can't answer this question. I can't answer why. But I can tell you we have some of the most severe penalties, like life imprisonment. In St. Lucia. I don't think many people know that. But it's not implemented. But in fact, I had a discussion with the Commissioner of Police, and he says to me that he'll be proposing some new legislation, which we await from the Commissioner of Police. I think when he meets you, he'll probably be telling you what he's proposing, but he says to me he's proposing some new legislation matters to deal with crime. So I await his guidance on that matter.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister.
Good afternoon.
You would have indicated that this year marks, I believe, 29 years since you've been elected as parliamentarian.
I indicate that as a fact.
Okay. You stated factually that 2026 marks.
People said that. I know that.
But it is true that it's been 29 years. Absolutely. Wonderful.
Very happy and very thankful and humbled by that.
What would you say has been the highlight of this journey for you thus far?
Every day is a highlight. Every day I meet people, every day people tell me how I've touched their lives. Every day is a highlight. Every day, even when there is disappointment, even when there is criticism, it's still a highlight. It's what makes is my connection to the people. Every day, even when I'm criticized, even when I'm sometimes, but most of the time, these criticisms come from people who really don't know. They either sit somewhere and see what they want to do. But because I'm not perfect. I've never professed to be a perfect person. There's no perfection around me. I'm not perfect. I strive to do my best for my constituents. I haven't done everything, but what keeps me going is my relationship with the people of my constituency, the relationship we have between them, all sectors of the constituency. So what's the highlight? Every day. But the main thing to me is how I've impacted on the education of the people of my constituency. And you can see it. The doctors, the engineers, even though some of them may not see where they came from, it's okay. Most of them, that's where they were brought up. The civil servants, the bankers, the education that's come, the contribution that these people have made to the society, and the original they started either in Black Malay or in Arundel Hill or in Rock Hall or in not so much Bagatelle. Bagatelle is pretty new. In Rock Hall, up to yesterday at church, I met a lady who says to me, Prime Minister, Abdel was born in Rock Hall. Doesn't even like she's up north. So, that relationship with the people of my constituency, many people will not understand it. But it's deep, it's intimate, and it's full of love.
Thank you. You often narrate that your job, like any other, is that of a temporary job. All right, nice. What legacy are you hoping to leave behind subsequent to your tenure as Prime Minister?
What am I hoping to leave behind? I will really hope to leave a more caring St. Lucia. A St. Lucia where there is, many times I think of the deliberate division that people try to put in our country. And it concerns me. We don't have a perfect country. There's no country in the world that's perfect. No, we strive for perfection. We strive to be perfect. But what I think I would like to leave behind is a more caring St. Lucia, a St. Lucia where there is more opportunity, as some of our legislation has shown, a new minimum wage, early child education, matriculation for children to be able to do their CXCs so that they can go to a higher pace of learning, a St. Jude Hospital, scholarships where people get full celebration school, where people who've never had the opportunity to go to university get an opportunity for our first generation scholarships. I think that I would like to leave behind a St. Lucia apart from more caring, a St. Lucia that's more educated, a St. Lucia that strives for excellence. This is what I would like to leave behind. And this is why I urge people of St. Lucia all the time, let us have one goal, a goal to make St. Lucia a better place for all of us, regardless of our political affiliation. Because the time will come when we have a choice. And that's the beauty of our country. And that's why people get irritated when I talk about the 1st of December. That day will come again. And that's the thing that I was trying to say. That day will come again. It's coming. It'll come again, where you have to go and face the people of the country. And the people decide. So that day is coming. Yes, and that's why I always make the point that it's a temporary job. That day is coming again. So in the meantime, I always say to people, let us see St. Lucia. Let's criticize, but let's not damage it. Let's not interfere in the psyche of our young people, make them believe that this country is worthless and useless, and everybody is let's not do it. Let's not do it, especially when the people have just spoken. We accepted what you call the silly season, which I don't believe in. We call it the silly. So we accept the silly season. When it's over, because it'll come again, 6 months already. You understand? So it's coming again. So there's no need for us to rush it because tomorrow is going to be Tuesday. You know, one thing is sure, tomorrow is Tuesday. I might not live to see it, but tomorrow is Tuesday. That's about. So I don't know why I do not know why there's so much deliberate anger and why. Why? That day is coming again. That day is coming. Let's wait for it. We can't stop it. Although the Prime Minister can call it tomorrow. That's some of the benefits of our system. I can call that day tomorrow and say, let's go back to the polls tomorrow. You know? I can do within 21 days. The Constitution allows me to do that, but I've made my mind yet on that.
There has been ongoing public discussion surrounding the conduct and exchanges among some political figures, specifically those in your cabinet. What do you believe? What role? Would you like me to mention it? Okay, so there is conversation that perhaps the Minister for Housing and, Representative for Cashry Central, his conduct and his demeanor sometimes can come across as being aggressive, overly aggressive. So my question is, what role do you believe political figures do play in fostering respectful conduct, especially when you have persons looking up to these political figures?
I spoke about Central Cashews. I want to assure the vendors of the vendors arcade that my promise to compensate them for loss of income still holds. Be a little patient. We'll work in the maths, but my promise to give some form of compensation to the vendors who no longer vend temporarily, albeit at the vendors arcade, I will fulfill that promise. Just give me some time. We're working on the figures. So let them rest assured that my word will be fulfilled. Back to the style of political figure. You see, everybody has their own style. Everybody has their own modus operandi. Everybody does things in their own image and likeness. But all I want to tell you is that the minister that in question is also attacked, He's also attacked. I respond differently to my attacks. I respond differently because I'm not aggressive, so I lie down and play dead. You understand? I take it. I take it every day. I take it. But not everybody can do like me. What keeps me going is the people I'm in touch with. The people, that's what keeps me going. The people I'm in touch with. Miss Motut was with us at the Bocage School last Friday. I'm sure she was touched by the kids and how they desire to learn. And we met a differently abled young man. Miss Motut was very impressed with him. And he stated that he was autistic. And I remember the opposition said I was autistic too. I remember that. Now you think I'll be brutal and annoyed and think I know it's not true. I mean, I told the young man, do not worry about when you're ridiculed. I told him so because they are ridiculed. They say I stutter. So that's what keeps me going. These kind of things. But other people react differently. Probably the Minister of Housing may want to react differently. But I don't react this way. So, to each his own. But I've always said the Minister of Housing, I was told him that sometimes he must temper, he must relax a bit. I've told him so. But as I said to you, everybody reacts differently. The Minister of Housing does not just go on a tangent like that. They attack him also. They say the most brutal things about him. His reaction is not like mine. I'm different. And all of us are not the same. You understand? I mean, I heard an opposition press conference say I must be blamed for the murders in the country. I mean, so you think I react to that? I can't. You understand? But see all about somebody else, they might react in a way that might almost sound as if they should not. But I'm not going to. So each of us are different. Each of us react differently. But what keeps me going is how the people relate to me. That's what keeps me going. You understand? Like, I can basically go anywhere in the country, but the security people will not allow me to. I go to my constituency. I can tell you something. I can leave my home and drive down, park my car, and walk into the George Charles Boulevard, go into Black Mali, come around and go to Toulouse. Alone, by myself. I can do it anytime. But I will not because of the security people. It's because of my job. But so when you can have the confidence to do that, it shows you how you relate to the people of the country.
Does the government anticipate that the removal of VAT on construction materials will be enough to offset increased building costs for housing and investment projects slated for this financial year?
We don't think it will be enough, but for the time being, that's all we can do. But we don't think it's good. We don't think it's enough because these costs escalate all the time.
We've heard a lot about payouts. So you have promises to the vendors you just mentioned, and many of the introduced social programs. How is the government paying for that? What financial position are we in as a country?
Knock on wood, we've been meeting our projections up to now. We don't know, as you know, we subsidize fuel products heavily. The economy has been doing pretty well in terms of activity, but we are monitoring the situation very closely. But for now, we are meeting our projections for now. And this is why we'll pay particular, and you'll hear more about it from me. We're going to pay particular emphasis on the tax amnesty.
Going back to crime a little bit, and of course, one of the areas I believe that some individuals are correct that enforcement may very well be our main issue. You spoke a while ago with regards to the government's responsibility to put those laws in place. It's almost sounded as if the judiciary was the problem. Almost sounded as if the judiciary was the problem.
On the record,
I know you didn't. I'm just suggesting that what you said sounds like the judiciary is the problem. And if the laws are in place and supposedly the police are administering the laws set out, I think many would agree that the only part that it may not be playing its actual part is the judiciary. Your comments?
No, I won't say so. It's a complex issues. You know, I know if you did last week here when I said to you that information is not evidence. Now, when we speak here, I speak, you speak in the press, but in a court of law, what happens there is evidence. My father was a policeman. I hope nobody gets vexed if I say that again. And he used to say to me all the time that the court is a court of law and may not be a court of justice. That's deep. Now, when lawyers tell you, my instructions are, that's what lawyers tell you, you know. Lawyers tell you, my instructions are. And the instructions that they get, what they're told to by the client. Now, you and me, that sounds very, even unfair and unjust. That's what lawyers tell you. My instructions are. So even if you see somebody commit a crime, the lawyer will tell you, my instructions are. Now, so the crime and the punishment may be there, the crime may be committed, but the punishment may not seem to suit the crime that was committed. You know why? Because in there is law. In there is procedure. And that is why the police have to have training in scenes of crime, the way the evidence is collected. You have to have training in the collection of evidence, in giving evidence. You have to have evidence in report writing. You have to get, and that is why it's so important. When we speak about enforcement, enforcement means arresting the person. The other part of that is get that person in jail for the crime that they commit. And in between that, there's a wide area that we do not see because we're emotionally, and then human beings have to be emotionally attached to it. And I feel the emotion that the public feels, because I feel the same emotion. I feel it. I have a daughter. I feel these emotions like you, like anybody else. And so don't let anybody make you believe that we just cold and don't care. We feel this emotion, but the fact is, in between the crime and the punishment, there is the law. And that's what the question is. So even though a crime is committed, even though the whole world sees the crime is committed, in between that and where the judge sits, they sit in between these two things: evidence, procedure, and process. And that's why it's so important that the police get training in these areas. And that's why people get annoyed when the police seize the vehicle and they call it a crime. What do you call it? A scene of crime. When the police bar off areas, even you get vexed and say, why can't you go in there and express people? Because, and some of those things, and that's why sometimes when the police withhold certain things, you say it's press freedom, which I understand you. But the point is, there's something called technicalities. And many crimes, many people get away with technicalities, which is a reality that you have to face in a democratic society. Because, as I told you last week, it is not me, but it is legal palace that is better a million guilty men go free than one innocent man gets in jail. It's not me I say it, so don't quote me. Don't go and say, I see. Don't quote me, I didn't say that. That's what's said by people in the legal profession, not me, I'm not a lawyer. I have absolutely no cape for him to be. The last time I did law I did it in some course when I went to school a long time ago. You understand? So I'm not making any pronouncement. That's what they say. So we must understand, but I understand the outrage in the society. I understand it. I understand the outrage. But the gap between the crime and the punishment, in between there are many things happening. I hope I've explained to you in a non-legal way. As a layman who feels the pain that most of the public feel as far as crime is concerned.
Shifting gears a bit, the St. Jude Hospital is slated to be open, as per information previously, in July.
Very hopefully can. They did good progress in there. Very good progress. It's the best known secret these days. No one talked about St. Jude, right? But we're going to invite you to open the real opening. We're going to invite you because state of the art it's. You'll like what you see. I'm so proud of that. You'll believe it. It's like somebody, a cop told me yesterday, no, it's not a cop, somebody, it is a press man, told me yesterday that when they went to the Grosley police station, they wished they wanted to join the police force.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Miss Martin.
I'm good, thank you.
He said he wanted to get arrested, you know. Because the way they sell is luxurious. How are you, Jerry?
I'm well blessed, sir.
You're blessed. You like me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Miss Martin.
We understand that the government is heavily subsidizing gas and fuel, but the NCOPT and bus drivers have called for a proper formula to calculate bus fares based on inflation and the rise in, oil prices internationally. I understand that there was a CDB report that was done looking at all these different things. Is there a chance that they can soon see this type of formula?
There is a CDB report, but I hope everybody will be prepared to follow all of what the CDB report says. That's something you have to watch. When you're in government and you get reports from technocrats, you have to decipher, because technocrats are technocrats. Technocrats look at facts, technocrats look at laws, and technocrats give opinions. Now sometimes it's convenient for people to say, technocrats say, no, convenient, sometimes. But the reports have political repercussions. Now, the Minister of Transport will tell you all about the CDB report, he'll tell you all about what it says, but all I can tell you, it also has costs, it has benefits. It doesn't only talk about fares. I can tell you that for now. It doesn't only talk about fares. But the minister will discuss it. But what I want to say to you is that when you speak about these reports, you must realize and remember they've been prepared by technocrats, not prepared by politicians. And sometimes politicians cannot always follow what technocrats say, even though it's convenient for some people at convenient times to tell you, listen to what the technocrat says. I just want you to remember that. But there is a report, and the Minister of Transport will be dealing with it. There's a whole transport study that's happening. We want to speak about bus terminals. It's a major hazard. The buses all over the road. So in the next budget, I'm going to make a statement on bus terminals. We need to have a centralized space to put our buses. That's going to be one of our programs in the next budget. I'm telling you so early what's happening in the next budget. Right? That's going to be one of our programs. So we need a place for buses. Transport is there's a problem with transportation. I mean, part of the economic issues in the country, as far as employment is concerned, is that people who live out of cashews can't get transportation to get to their homes after work, particularly hotel workers. It's a serious problem, very serious. I mean, the people who have restaurants in the north, they tell you they can't get work for them because when people even though they get to town, they can't get to their homes, can't get to Jackmel, can't get to Anstory. So the report speaks to all these things, but the report doesn't only speak about fares. Let me warn you. It doesn't only speak about operational costs. It speaks about many other things. Okay.
Just to circle back to your point, you noted that these reports are made by technocrats, prepared by technocrats, not politicians necessarily. What do you mean by political repercussions?
Because sometimes technocrats do not think about votes. you know. I tell you something. Any politician, any practicing politician, not pseudo politicians, any practicing politician who tells you he doesn't want to win is not speaking the truth. Now, technocrats give you advice, technocrats give you even rational advice. But politically, it might mean you lose 2,000 votes. Now, there are politicians, the late, I think it's Erskine Sandiford in Barbados, I'm not sure if I have the name right. He took the chance that he was not devaluing the dollar, the Barbados dollar. He said he was laying off civil servants, just cutting civil servants' salary. That's a choice he took. He paid the political price, he lost. Sometimes politicians, if you feel strongly enough about something, regardless of the political repercussions, you will take it. Right? That happened in St. Lucia to a certain extent. A lot of the reasons why we lost the 2006 general elections, because we took principled positions. Right? That we did not look at all the political ramifications, but these positions benefited the country as a whole. You remember when we implemented VAT? Again, we got, Rand should know that, it was hard, it was a tough, I think we even lost the election. Part of the reasons why we lost the election. Part of it will be VAT implementation. Look at what VAT is doing for us now. Understand? So sometimes political decisions are taken, but you take the political gamble. I've taken some of them in my life and I've succeeded. But you take it because you have the higher calling that your decision, even though the people may not see the benefit of that decision you've taken now, will serve them in the long run. But they have political repercussions.
Any further questions?
See you on Monday.
What for elections?
How soon?
How soon? Huh?
How soon do you expect the before the announcement of the state framework?
Cabinet is meeting now, and I think the announcement can up discussion the family probably by tomorrow. Should have a announcement by tomorrow, because the cabinet is, as we speak now, the cabinet is meeting on I can assure you there will be a state framework. The body will be exposed at the House of Parliament, all the protocols for a deceased head of state. Okay? Bye.